Hi, it's Sarah Holman again, and I'm here today to talk about how to find a good editor. Um, it's something I actually really need, and it's struggle sometimes to pick out because there's a lot of people who offer services, and it can be tempting, especially for indie authors, to go with a lower bid because it can be expensive, and while we understand the importance of editing, sometimes it's just like, well, that person's cheaper, or this person will do it for free, and it's just something. So finding a good one, it's important, but sometimes it doesn't feel like the most important part of a. Excuse me, I just realized that there's something wrong with my um, camera. I was blocking part of it. Anyway, so uh, when I go, I will be very honest, is that I know that it's something that some of my works people would probably read and ask, how am I in the world I have any say in finding a good editor? Because there have been some of my works have gotten out with some pretty big mistakes. However, one of the amazing things that always just one of the things that constantly amazes me is how God uses even those flawed works. Um, so, but even though God can use it, it's always important to try to do your very best. The first thing that you want to do is to try to improve yourself as an editor. Obviously, there's going to be some things that you yourself are not going to catch because you're going to read it the way you wrote it, not necessarily what is there. Because of this, that's why you need some editors. The first thing you want to do is, if you do not have any money to spend on editing, then you want to find people willing to read and edit your book in the reader world that are skilled with editing. I am very blessed with a dad who's very good at catchy typos, not perfect, but good. And then I usually send it out to I try to get about 10 people to be eyeballing a document before I go to the publishing. So I get that back, and then I will get a lot. When you have that many people looking at it, you will find a lot of the typos simply by virtue of there's a lot of people looking at it. So what you want to do is find people through like the blogging community. There's a lot of Facebook groups and Goodreads groups where authors support each other, and sometimes you'll find a group of some fellow authors and stuff that are willing to look at it. So yeah, that is one way to do it. And a little bit back, going to improving yourself. There are a lot of good books out there. There's editing. One of my favorite books, though, I have to admit, is very short because while I like grammar, I get very easily confused by certain concepts, especially when they start talking about exceptions. I just go nuts. My poor dad has been trying to teach me comma usage since I was in like 3rd grade, and as many people who have read my work will attest, I have not mastered that yet. While my books look better at this point than they did when I first started publishing, you will still find some very interesting use of commas, simply because I'm not the best at it. However, I found a really helpful book that's really good at giving the basics without a lot of the exceptions that could start confusing me. They're just going, just put the squiggly line anywhere, it'll work. So, which doesn't really help. It's Write Well by Rochelle Ray Cobb. It's a fantastic book that I'm keeping on my Kindle, and I'm looking back and forth between it now, but while I'm editing, I plan to read it before, a few times over, because it's really helpful. When you go to the point that you're ready to find an editor, I've worked with them a couple different ones. you need to know the difference between two very important types of editing. There is copy editing, which they're going to be looking for the comma placement, things like that. And then there's a content edit, and they're gonna tell you, have you thought about doing this scene from his perspective instead of her perspective? Or I didn't get the feel of that, of what that person was feeling at that moment. What did you mean, about that sentence and stuff? So that's a content edit. So going in, you need to be very clear what kind of editing you need. Some of you out there are amazing at grammar and really don't need somebody to tell you that the comma placement, or at least just not, well, it's always helpful to have somebody go over it because we all make mistakes. It's just, you might not need a professional, you just need but you will need content. So knowing what you're looking for is important. And then the best way to find what you need is you go in knowing whether you need a copy editor or a content editor or both, and then asking people whose books you like in the indie world who their editors were for, and often you'll find it that way. Sometimes there's support groups, like there's one that I'm part of. I'm not extremely active on it, but it's a Facebook group called Clean Indie Reads. Again, like I said, I'm not very active, but it's a great place to go and ask questions. Now, and I'll just say, hey, I'm looking for this kind of edit. Here's my budget. Who have you used? Often I'm very specific because there's a lot of people on there who say, I can do it for you, which is great. But sometimes I like to ask who you used that you felt did a great job at a good price. And because that will tell you a lot more than just, I can do the job, but really a recommendation. And that's the best way, is to ask around. If you don't know something, asking is great. And who used who, it's just the best way, is making those connections. And one of the things I love about asking questions like that is the relationships that are made. Most of the people that I use in both editing and cover design and whatnot are people I just started asking about, who made that cover? Who, or somebody coming in, and so it's just like, oh, I love that cover. Who made it? Oh, well, so-and-so. Well, Jessica Grayson. Oh, well, she'd be perfect to do my Tales of Taylor series. Or who made that? Well, Perry Kirkpatrick. And I'm like, oh, she's definitely the perfect one to do my case files. Just various people. It's, you find out who's really good, and especially for the style you want. Also, you want to take temperament into account. Some people are very sensitive about their work, are very protective, and while, number one, as writers, we have to develop a little bit of a tough skin. Do not ask for an editor of any kind until you're ready to accept. Now, that doesn't mean you can go and for a few, you get mad for a few minutes, and then you come back and really just look through it, or have a good cry, and then come back and seriously look at it. I mean, you can, because it is part of your heart that's now on paper. As it's my tears and blood is actually on the page. So sometimes when somebody says, this part didn't work for me, it's hard sometimes. Or I've had people that I really have admired and have loved my stuff come out and say, I didn't like this book. I didn't connect with it, and it hurt. But you kind of have to take a deep breath and, okay, why wasn't this working, and let's fix it. So, but beyond that, but some people's personalities just don't mesh. There have been a couple people who have offered to do, who have given me edits, and they never got another first draft of mine again because their personality and I heard it differently than they meant it, and I get offended, they get offended, just stuff like that. Or it just wasn't helpful. It's like, I don't think like you think, and I'm either confused by what you said, or I just, you don't understand the direction my writing's going in, especially for content editing. one of the other key things is if you, especially when you have a faith message, it's very important you get somebody who understands that and can help you polish that and make it glow. While you could get, for copy editing, just to comments, you really don't need somebody who shares your faith. If you're going to do a content edit, you really want somebody who shares that. It's not that it can't work, but they can help you find a story, and they might suggest changes. So you want to just think about your personality and stuff. So and try to think of it in ways to communicate that. If you're like in a group, excuse me, and you are like, I'm really sensitive, or this is my first book. A lot of times with your first book, it's the hardest. This is my first book. I need a content editor who will be understanding that this is hard for me to get an editor. I want to do it and I'm willing to work, but I just need somebody who will be gentle. You'll get, you'll get recommendations based on that. So, or, somebody who shares my faith is the most important thing to me, and somebody who will, just whatever your criteria is. So asking for recommendations based on certain criteria will help you get the editor that will work best for you. Another thing is to plug into writing community and have friends. I have two of my favorite editors. For copy editing, Kelsey Bryant has really been amazing. I'm actually going to have her go back over some of my older stuff to get it so I can re-release it with fewer errors. She's one of my favorites for copy editing, and I don't think I would have ever felt ready to publish without Rachelle Ray's help in the. I'm sorry, she's now Rachelle Cobb. I'm so happy that she's married now. But in some of my early works, we were both unpublished, but she gave me some of the best advice just in terms of content. Really helped me develop. And another way to get really good, especially content, is finding some authors who will walk alongside you, that you'll just share. There are multiple people who have formed like groups and just will shuffle work that everybody reads everybody else's. That's a little tougher to find now because everybody's very busy, but it can be very helpful. So that's how I find a good editor. Have a blessed day and see you again soon.